Tomasz lived a quiet life on the edge of the colony. His small farm stretched across a wide field of red grass that swayed like waves when the wind passed. Each morning he woke with the sun, checked his crops, and listened to the soft hum of the colony shield in the distance. Life was simple, and Tomasz liked it that way. One day, he noticed something unusual across the field. Machines rolled over the soil, flattening it, and workers were placing metal beams into the ground. It was clear that someone was building a new home right next to his land. For months Tomasz had lived without a neighbor. The colony had grown slowly, with most families preferring to stay closer to the central dome. Having someone move in so close to him felt strange, but also a little exciting. At first, he wondered who would want to live on the edge of nowhere. The supplies were harder to get, the nights were colder, and the silence was endless. Yet as the new structure rose higher, curiosity replaced his doubts. He saw the shape of the house forming, with wide glass walls that gleamed in the sun and tall beams that seemed almost decorative. The style was different from human design. It had a softness to it, with curved edges and glowing panels that looked alive in the dark. The workers finished their task within a week, and then the machines left. Tomasz expected a family or perhaps a group of settlers to arrive, but instead, only one figure appeared. He was standing near his barn when he first saw her. She walked with graceful steps, taller than most humans, her skin a pale shade that seemed to shimmer faintly under the sunlight. Her hair was long and silver, moving like strands of liquid metal. She carried no bags, only a small cube in her hand that expanded into a floating sphere when she tapped it. Tomasz realized at once that she was not human. He had heard about her species before but had never seen one up close. They were called the Scifi, newcomers to human space who had recently signed a peace agreement. People said they were intelligent, strong, and very private. Some settlers were unsure if they could be trusted, but the colony council had welcomed them. Now, one of them was his new neighbor. She did not notice him at first. She placed the floating sphere on the ground, and in response, the house's outer walls opened like petals. A soft light poured out, and she stepped inside. Her movements were calm, as if she belonged there already. Tomasz watched for a long moment before shaking his head. He had not spoken a word, yet already his life felt different. The next day, Tomasz decided it was only polite to introduce himself. He carried a basket of dried fruits from his farm and walked across the field. When he reached the new house, he found the door wide open. The air inside smelled clean, almost like fresh rain. "Hello," Tomasz called out, his voice uncertain. The figure appeared from within. Up close, she looked even more striking. Her silver hair caught the light, and her bright green eyes studied him carefully. Tomasz noticed with surprise that she wore no clothing, though her skin itself seemed to carry a faint glow, like a protective layer. "I am Lyra," she said simply, her voice smooth and clear. "You are the neighbor." "Yes," Tomasz answered, trying to keep his tone steady. "My name is Tomasz. I thought I should welcome you. These are fruits from my farm." He held out the basket, unsure of how she would react. Lyra tilted her head, then accepted the basket with graceful hands. She touched one of the fruits gently, as if testing its texture. "You grow food here. That is good." "I thank you." There was a silence between them. Tomasz felt awkward, but also curious. He wanted to ask why she wore nothing inside her home, yet he held his words. She did not seem embarrassed, nor did she act as though anything was unusual. To her, this was normal. Finally, she spoke again. "In my people's homes, clothing is not needed. Our skin protects us. We find fabric indoors uncomfortable. I hope this does not trouble you." Tomasz nodded quickly, though he still felt uncertain. "No, not at all. Everyone has their own ways. I just wanted to be neighborly." Her eyes softened slightly, almost like a smile without moving her lips. That is kind. You are welcome here. When Tomasz left her house, he felt his thoughts spinning. He had expected a quiet life with crops and silence, but now he had a neighbor unlike anyone he had ever known. She was strange, mysterious, and yet somehow peaceful. The colony might whisper about her, but Tomasz already knew he would not. Something told him that living beside Lyra was the beginning of a story far larger than his farm. As the red sun set behind the hills, Tomasz stood at the edge of his field and looked toward her glowing house. For the first time in many seasons, he felt a sense of change in the air, as if the world itself was shifting around him. The colony settled into its normal rhythm, but Tomasz's days felt different now. He would tend his fields in the morning, check the water lines, and feed the farm animals, yet his eyes often wandered toward the glowing house at the edge of his land. Lyra lived quietly, never visiting the colony center and never speaking to others, at least from what Tomasz could see. One morning, while Tomasz was repairing a broken fence post, he noticed her outside. Lyra moved with slow, graceful motions as she placed thin rods into the ground around her house. The rods hummed faintly, releasing small arcs of blue light. Tomasz set down his tools and walked closer, curious. "Are those for power?" he asked when he reached the edge of her yard. Lyra looked up, her green eyes meeting his. "Not power. Shield markers. They keep insects and dust away. The air inside remains clean." Tomasz nodded. "That's clever. Humans usually use filters for that." "Filters need to be changed," she said calmly. "This system repairs itself." Tomasz wanted to ask more questions, but before he could, she invited him in with a small gesture. He hesitated, then followed. Inside her house, the walls glowed with soft light, and the air smelled fresh, almost like springtime. Strange plants with long silver leaves grew in pots along the walls. Some of them glowed faintly, releasing tiny sparks that drifted upward and vanished. Lyra moved toward a round table in the center. She placed 2 cups there, filling them with a clear liquid from a thin tube connected to the wall. "Drink," she said. Tomasz took a cautious sip. The taste was sharp at first, then sweet. It reminded him of mint, but stronger. "That's good," he admitted. Lyra nodded as if that answer was enough. She sat opposite him, her glowing skin giving off a faint warmth. Tomasz still found it strange that she wore nothing, but she seemed so natural and unbothered that he forced himself to look past it. He reminded himself that it was her way, not meant to shock. "You live alone?" Tomasz asked. "Yes," Lyra replied. "My people often travel alone when we settle new places. We learn by observing. We share knowledge later." "That sounds lonely," Tomasz said. Lyra tilted her head slightly. "Not lonely. Focused. When the time is right, others will come." They sat in silence for a while. Tomasz noticed how calm she was, never fidgeting, never rushing her words. She spoke slowly, as if every sentence carried weight. Humans, in contrast, were often restless. After a time, Tomasz rose to leave. "Thank you for the drink. If you ever need help with tools or machines, you can ask me. I'm not much of an expert, but I try." Lyra gave a small nod, and her eyes softened again, the same way they had when he first met her. That evening, Tomasz went into the colony to trade some crops. The market was busy, and people spoke loudly as they haggled over prices. As Tomasz handed over baskets of fruit, he overheard whispers. "Did you see the new one?" a woman muttered to her friend. "Strange, living out there alone. They say she doesn't wear clothes inside her house," another man added in a low voice. "Not normal." Tomasz frowned but said nothing. He returned home with supplies, yet the voices echoed in his head. People feared what they didn't understand. He thought of Lyra's calm eyes and steady words. She did not deserve to be spoken of like that. The next day, Tomasz decided to bring her something from his farm. He carried a basket of fresh grain bread, still warm from the oven, across the field. When he arrived, Lyra was outside again, studying the sky with a small device in her hand. "You watch the stars often," Tomasz said. "Yes," Lyra answered, lowering the device. "I listen for signals." "Signals from where?" Tomasz asked, curious. "From those who once hunted us," she said quietly. Her voice held no fear, but there was a shadow in her eyes. Tomasz stood in silence, unsure how to respond. He offered her the bread, and she accepted it with a nod. Later that night, Tomasz sat by his window, looking toward her glowing house. He thought about her words. Hunted. What kind of danger had she escaped? And why did she believe it could follow her here? For the first time in many months, Tomasz felt uneasy in the quiet night. The stars above, once peaceful, now seemed filled with hidden watchers. Yet when he thought of Lyra's calm face, he also felt something else. Trust. Whatever her customs, whatever her secrets, she was not a threat to him. She was a neighbor, and maybe even a friend. As the night grew colder, Tomasz made a silent decision. If trouble ever came to the colony, he would stand beside her. The colony morning was quiet, broken only by the low hum of machines in the distance. Tomasz worked in his fields, repairing an irrigation pipe that had cracked overnight. As he leaned over the pipe, he heard a sound in the air, a faint tone that did not belong to the wind or the machines. It was thin and sharp, almost like a whistle, but coming from the sky. He straightened and looked up. Nothing moved among the clouds, but the sound continued for several seconds before fading away. Tomasz frowned. He had lived here long enough to know the ordinary noises of the land, and this was not one of them. Later that day, he decided to ask Lyra. He walked across the field and found her kneeling beside a set of silver plants she had brought from her world. The leaves of the plants shimmered as if they held their own light. Lyra looked up as he approached, her green eyes watchful. "Did you hear it?" Tomasz asked. "Hear what?" "A sound from the sky. Like a whistle, but longer. I heard it this morning." Lyra was silent for a long moment. Then she stood, her tall frame casting a shadow over the glowing plants. "Yes," she said quietly. "I heard it too." Tomasz felt a chill. "What was it?" "A signal," she replied. "Not from humans. Not from my people. It is something else." The words hung heavy in the air. Tomasz wanted to ask more, but Lyra's face told him she already knew what it meant. That evening, Lyra visited Tomasz's farm for the first time. She moved silently through the rows of crops, studying the water lines and soil. Tomasz offered her a seat by the small fire he had built outside. She sat without hesitation, the glow of the flames reflecting on her silver hair. "My people were hunted," she began, her voice calm but steady. "Long ago, we lived on many worlds. Then the hunters came. They had no name that can be spoken, only a hunger for us. They chased us across the stars, world by world. Many of my kind fell. Some survived by hiding, others by fleeing. I am one of the ones who chose to flee." Tomasz listened carefully, his hands still. "And you think they followed you here?" "I do not know," she admitted. But that sound was not natural. It was a probe or a mark. The hunters often send signals first, to search for prey. Tomasz stared into the fire. The colony was small, fragile, unprepared for such a threat. If Lyra was right, danger was already near. "Why not tell the council?" Tomasz asked. "They will not believe me," Lyra said. "Humans trust what they see, not what they hear. By the time the hunters are seen, it may be too late." Tomasz knew she was right. The council argued even over small matters. Convincing them of invisible hunters would be nearly impossible. Over the next days, Tomasz noticed changes. His animals grew restless at night, pacing in their pens. The skies sometimes flickered with faint flashes of light, as if distant storms were forming above the clouds. Each time, he saw Lyra standing outside her house, staring upward with her device in hand. One night, Tomasz woke to a low vibration in the ground. He rushed outside and saw a faint beam of light far beyond the hills. It was narrow, moving slowly across the land before vanishing. The next morning, he went to Lyra at once. "I saw something. A light moving over the hills." Lyra's face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "They are searching." "That is how it begins." Tomasz felt his chest tighten. "Then we must prepare. Even if the council does nothing, we can do something." Lyra studied him, then gave a slow nod. "You are not afraid to stand with me?" "Afraid, yes," Tomasz admitted. "But fear does not mean running. If danger comes, I will fight to protect my land, my people, and you." For the first time since she arrived, Lyra allowed a small smile to appear. It was faint, but it reached her eyes. "Then we will prepare together." They spent the day gathering supplies. Tomasz showed her the old tools and machines he had kept in his barn. Lyra taught him how to set small detectors around the field, devices that would sense movement in the air and soil. They worked until the sun fell, their shadows stretching long across the red grass. As night came, Tomasz stood at the edge of his farm, looking at the stars. They had always seemed distant and peaceful, but now they felt alive, filled with unseen watchers. Yet he no longer felt alone. Lyra stood beside him, tall and calm, her silver hair shining in the starlight. Together, they faced the sky, waiting for what would come. The days that followed felt heavier for Tomasz. Every time he looked at the sky, he remembered the strange light that had swept over the hills. He worked in his fields as usual, but his thoughts were not on crops or repairs. His mind stayed on Lyra's words, the hunters, and the signals she claimed to hear. One morning, Tomasz walked across the field to find her already outside, adjusting one of the small detectors they had placed in the soil. The thin rod pulsed with a faint blue light, and Lyra crouched beside it with careful hands. "Another signal," she said before Tomasz could even greet her. "Shorter than the first. They are mapping the area." Tomasz felt a chill. "So they know we are here?" "Not yet," Lyra replied. "But they are close." The hunters search slowly, carefully. When they are certain, they strike. Her calm voice made her words even more serious. She did not raise her tone or panic, but Tomasz saw in her eyes that she carried the weight of memory. That evening, Tomasz attended a colony meeting at the central dome. Farmers, traders, and builders filled the hall, their voices mixing in a restless crowd. The council leader, a tall man named Joran, called for quiet. "We have reports of strange lights and unusual sounds," Joran said. "Some believe these are signs of storms or equipment faults. Others speak of more troubling things." The crowd stirred. Tomasz raised his hand and stood. "I saw the light with my own eyes. And Lyra, my neighbor, she believes it is not natural. She says it is a warning of danger." At the mention of her name, whispers spread through the hall. Some faces turned uneasy, others skeptical. One woman muttered, "The alien." "Of course." Joran frowned. "We respect our allies, but fear spreads quickly if we are careless with words. Unless there is proof, we cannot assume danger." Tomasz's jaw tightened. "And if proof comes too late?" Joran shook his head. "Then we will act. Until then, we remain calm." The meeting ended with no decision, and Tomasz returned home frustrated. He found Lyra outside, watching the horizon as if she already knew what had been said. "They did not believe you," she said softly. "No, Tomash admitted. They want proof. Proof will come, Lyra said, her voice heavy. But by then, it may cost lives. That night, Tomash could not sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft sounds of the farm. Then, near midnight, a low hum filled the air. It grew louder, like a vibration in the bones. Tomash jumped up and ran outside. Above the hills, a strange shape drifted through the sky. It was not like any human ship. It was long and sharp, with glowing lines that shifted like flowing fire. No engines roared, no wings flapped. It moved silently, scanning the land below with beams of white light. Tomash's heart raced. He ran toward Lyra's house, calling her name. She appeared at once, her silver hair glowing in the moonlight. She looked up, her green eyes narrowing. "It is a scout," she said. "The hunters send these before the main ship. They watch, they record, they mark their prey." The beam of light passed close to Tomash's field, and his animals cried out in fear. The scout ship hovered, then slowly drifted away into the night sky. Tomash swallowed hard. "Now we have proof. The council cannot ignore this." "They may still choose to," Lyra said. "Humans often wait until danger touches them directly. But we cannot wait. We must prepare more." Over the next days, Tomash and Lyra worked without rest. They strengthened the detectors, buried signal blockers around the field, and tested old equipment that Tomash had not touched in years. Lyra showed him how to shape small crystals into warning markers, tools from her people that glowed brightly when energy fields passed nearby. One afternoon, while they worked, Lyra paused and looked at him closely. "You stay by my side even when others doubt." "Why?" Tomash wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Because I have seen enough to trust you. And because you are my neighbor. That means something." Lyra was silent for a long time, then gave a slow nod. "Among my people, neighbors are rare. We often live apart. But when someone chooses to stand beside us, it is a bond that is not broken easily." That night, as Tomash lay in bed, he thought of her words. A bond. He had not expected friendship when she arrived, only strangeness. Now, he felt something stronger than curiosity. He felt responsibility. If danger came, he would fight not only for his farm and his colony but also for her. The warning had been given. The hunters were near. And Tomash knew the quiet days of the colony were ending. The colony woke to a restless morning. Tomash noticed the birds in the fields had vanished, and even the wind felt heavier. He hurried to his barn, where he had left some equipment ready for use. Lyra was already outside, her hands moving quickly over one of the glowing detectors. "They are close," she said without looking up. "I feel their presence in the signals." Tomash nodded. "Then we need to do more. We cannot wait for them to come to the colony." Lyra agreed. Together, they moved through the field, placing new devices in patterns that Tomash did not fully understand but trusted. Lyra explained, "These markers confuse energy detection. The hunters rely on signals to locate their prey. We can hide our presence for a short time." Tomash worked quickly, adjusting metal rods and wires while Lyra's hands moved over her crystals. The sunlight reflected off her pale skin, and Tomash noticed the faint shimmer that always seemed to follow her. Despite the tension, her calm presence gave him courage. As evening fell, a hum filled the air. Tomash froze. Lyra crouched beside him, her eyes narrowing. In the sky, a dark shape moved against the fading sun. It was larger than the scout they had seen before, sleek and long, with edges that seemed sharper than any human ship. It glided silently, scanning the ground below with thin beams of light. "They have arrived," Lyra whispered. "The hunters awaken." Tomash's stomach tightened, but he forced himself to stay steady. "Then we fight smart. Not with brute force, but with planning." Lyra nodded. Yes. Humans are clever. We will combine your tools with my knowledge. Together, they moved back to the barn. Tomasz showed her old energy nets he had repaired, devices used for controlling small animal movements, but which could be adapted to trap or confuse the hunters. Lyra placed crystals on each device, linking them to her detectors. The lights glowed softly, waiting for the moment when they would activate. Night fell, and the hunter's ship hovered above the colony. Tomasz could hear the low vibration through the ground. The air shimmered slightly, as if invisible waves were moving across the fields. Lyra whispered, "They are testing the perimeter. They will probe for weakness." Tomasz swallowed hard. "Then we have one chance to make them confused." They moved through the field together, placing decoy devices and small reflective panels that Tomasz had never thought of using. Lyra explained that the hunters relied on energy readings as much as sight. By creating false signals, they could mislead the ship. Hours passed. The hunters' beams swept across the farm, moving slowly, methodically. Tomasz's heart raced each time the light came near, but Lyra remained calm, guiding him silently. At one point, the beam hit one of the decoys. The light split, refracted, and scattered in multiple directions. The hunters paused, then moved on. Tomasz could hardly believe it. "It worked," he whispered. "Yes," Lyra said quietly. "But this is only the beginning. They will return, and stronger." Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A low roar echoed through the valley. Tomasz looked up and saw a shadow moving faster than the ship above. It was large, more like a living machine than a craft. Its edges shimmered as if made of liquid metal, and Tomasz realized with fear that this was no ordinary hunter. "They adapt quickly," Lyra said. "We must stay ahead, always." Tomasz felt a mixture of fear and determination. He had never faced anything like this, yet he could not turn away. The colony depended on them, and he would not fail. Lyra touched his shoulder lightly. "You are brave, Tomasz. Your courage is human. That is why we can fight them together." He nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on him. The hunter above the hill seemed unstoppable, but Tomasz and Lyra had the advantage of cleverness, planning, and teamwork. For the rest of the night, they monitored the skies. Each pulse, each hum, each shimmer in the air was analyzed and countered. Tomasz felt exhausted, but he also felt alive. The hunter had awakened, but so had something within him, the determination to protect what he loved, and the growing trust in his strange, beautiful neighbor. By dawn, the hunters had moved beyond the colony, leaving only faint tremors in the air. Tomasz and Lyra looked at each other, silently acknowledging that this was not a victory, only a warning. The real challenge would come soon, and they would need to be ready. The sun rose over the red fields, casting long shadows across Tomasz's farm. Despite the night's terror, Tomasz felt a new determination. The hunters were dangerous, but he and Lyra had survived the first encounter. They had learned that planning, quick thinking, and teamwork could turn the tide against an enemy that seemed invincible. Lyra moved silently through the field, checking the detectors and the crystal markers they had placed the night before. Tomasz carried tools and supplies, adjusting traps and reinforcing the reflective panels. "They will return," Lyra said calmly. "Stronger than before. We must be ready." Tomasz nodded. "We cannot fight them head-on. But we can make them think twice before attacking." Lyra smiled faintly. "That is human thinking. Clever, flexible, unpredictable. Your kind surprises even the hunters." Together, they spent the day preparing. Tomasz dug trenches around the field and planted devices that could detect movement and energy pulses. Lyra placed her glowing crystals along the edges of the trenches. Each crystal sent faint signals that could confuse the sensors of the hunters' ships. "Here," Tomasz said, pointing to one of the traps. "If they fly too low, This will send them off course. Lyra studied it, then nodded. Good. But they may adapt. We need more than one plan. They worked late into the afternoon, testing each device, adjusting their positions, and ensuring that the traps would not interfere with the colony's life. Tomasz realized that they had created something both defensive and clever, a network of illusions and warnings that could turn the hunters' own strategies against them. As night approached, Lyra led Tomasz to a small hill near the edge of the field. From there, they could see the horizon, the colony spread out below them like a cluster of tiny lights. She held a device in her hand, and the crystals along the field glowed in response. They are near, she said softly. I can feel it. Soon, they will test the defenses again. Tomasz took a deep breath. Then we are ready. The first sign came as a faint vibration in the ground. Tomasz's heart raced as he looked at the sky. A shadow appeared, moving faster than the eye could follow. The hunter's ship had returned, larger and more menacing than before. Its edges shimmered with energy, and its lights scanned the field below. Lyra's crystals pulsed rapidly. They are detecting our traps. They know we are here. But we have misled them before. We can do it again. Tomasz activated one of the decoy panels. A bright reflection flared upward, splitting the energy beams of the hunter's sensors. The ship faltered for a moment, then changed direction. They adapt fast, Lyra said. We must keep moving, keep thinking. For hours, Tomasz and Lyra guided the hunter through the field. Each time the enemy tried to find a clear path, they were met with another trap or a false signal. Tomasz adjusted devices in real time, and Lyra's crystals reacted to the energy patterns. The hunters grew frustrated, their movements more erratic. Finally, the main ship hovered above the colony, pulsing with energy as if it was testing its limits. Tomasz and Lyra exchanged a glance. They both understood that the final test was near. We cannot fail, Tomasz whispered. If they find the colony, everything is lost. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. Then we do not fail. You have courage, and you have thought. Together, we are stronger than they expect. With that, they activated the final series of traps. Crystals glowed, metal panels reflected light, and energy nets hummed quietly under the soil. The hunter attempted to descend, but its path was blocked, misdirected by the network of clever devices. The ship faltered, then emitted a high-pitched hum before retreating into the night sky. Tomasz collapsed onto the ground, exhausted but exhilarated. We did it, he said, almost in disbelief. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes calm but proud. We did. The hunters underestimated human ingenuity. And they underestimate the bond between neighbors. Tomasz looked at her. I never expected to learn so much from a neighbor. You've taught me more than anyone else in the colony ever could. And you have shown me courage, Lyra replied. Humans are unpredictable, yes, but also strong. Strength is not only in power. It is in cleverness, in persistence, in the choice to stand together. As dawn approached, the first light of day illuminated the red fields and the colony below. Tomasz and Lyra stood side by side, watching the horizon. They knew the hunters would return eventually, but now they were ready. They had human resolve, combined with alien knowledge, and that made them a force the hunters had not expected. For the first time since Lyra arrived, Tomasz felt a deep sense of hope. Whatever came next, he knew they could face it together. The night was unusually still, as if the colony itself was holding its breath. Tomasz and Lyra stood on the hill near his field, scanning the horizon. The red grass below swayed softly in the cool wind, but the air carried a tension Tomasz had never felt before. The hunters were returning, and this time, there would be no mistakes. They are coming, Lyra said calmly. The main force. This is their last attempt. Tomasz nodded, gripping a tool in his hands, though it was more for comfort than for use. Then we fight smart. We don't run. We protect the colony, no matter what. Lyra gave a faint smile. That is human courage. It is why we can win. They moved quickly across the field, activating every trap, every detector, every reflective panel. The crystals Lyra had placed began to glow brightly, sending signals that confused sensors and masked their location. Tomasz double-checked the energy nets, making sure each one was ready to trigger at the right moment. The hunters appeared suddenly, sliding silently over the horizon. Their ships moved with fluid speed, scanning the ground with bright beams that threatened to pierce the protective illusions. Tomasz's heart pounded, but he forced himself to focus. Panic would be useless. Every step, every action mattered. They are testing the perimeter first, Lyra said. Draw them in. Tomasz understood immediately. They needed to lead the hunters into the traps they had prepared. He activated a reflective panel, causing the nearest hunter ship to divert its path. Another ship moved too low, triggering a net that hummed and emitted a pulse. The hunter paused, confused, its sensors scrambled by the combined signals. They are not used to this, Lyra said. Your method surprised them. For hours, the hunters probed the field. Each time they tried to find a safe path, another trap forced them back. Tomasz adjusted the energy nets, Lyra shifted the crystals, and together, they created a pattern too complex for the hunters to understand. Then, a larger ship descended, moving faster than the others. Its edges shimmered with energy, sharper and stronger than anything they had faced before. Tomasz felt a chill, but Lyra's presence steadied him. This is it, she said softly. We fight not with strength, but with cleverness. Stay calm. Follow my lead. The large hunter ship swept over the field, attempting to scan the colony below. Tomasz and Lyra activated the final decoys. Bright lights, false signals, and shifting reflections confused the sensors. The ship faltered, then tried to ascend, only to trigger a hidden energy net that pulsed upward, forcing it back. Tomasz realized the hunters had underestimated them. They thought strength alone would win. They had not counted on human ingenuity combined with alien knowledge. Keep going, Lyra said. They are close to giving up. Tomasz worked quickly, adjusting one last device. A crystal marker pulsed strongly, sending a clear signal to the hunter ship. The beam of energy hit the ship's sensors, causing it to hesitate. Then, one by one, the smaller hunter ships retreated, their formations breaking as they failed to understand the traps. The final ship, now isolated, emitted a high-pitched hum before retreating into the night sky. The threat was gone, at least for now. Tomasz fell to his knees, exhausted but relieved. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. You see, Tomasz. Courage, cleverness, and determination can overcome even the strongest enemy. The hunters did not expect humans to think this way. Tomasz looked at her, gratitude and admiration filling his heart. I never thought I could do this. I never thought the colony could survive something like them. You did, Lyra said. Together, we did. And now the colony is safe because of it. Not by strength alone, but by our choice to stand together. The first light of dawn appeared over the hills, painting the red grass with gold. The colony below stirred as settlers came outside, noticing the quiet sky and the calm fields. Tomasz and Lyra looked at the horizon, knowing that the hunters might return someday, but also knowing that humans and their allies could face any challenge if they worked together. Tomasz smiled at Lyra. Thank you for trusting me. And thank you for standing beside me, she replied. You have shown me what humans can do when they choose to protect others. That is your true strength. For the first time since Lyra arrived, Tomasz felt complete peace. The danger had passed, and the colony was safe. He looked at her glowing presence in the morning light and realized that living beside Lyra had taught him more than courage. It had taught him trust, cooperation, and the power of human resolve when combined with wisdom from beyond the stars. As the day began, Tomasz returned to his fields, feeling hope and determination. Lyra went to her house, placing crystals in their usual spots, watching the skies with quiet vigilance. Together, they had faced the hunters, and together, they had won. The colony would remember the night when humans and aliens stood together, clever and brave, to protect life and home. And Tomasz knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together, ready for any challenge the universe could send.